Look at this. I got headphones on. I got a mic going. Baby.
If
Huh?
only people could see you now.
Hey, no video. We've gone through this before.
All right,
No
all right,
video.
all right. Welcome to This Commerce Life. This is a podcast aimed at small, medium entrepreneurs focused on commerce. I'm Phil, your host, and Kenny, your co-host, will join us as well. And we're going to talk to you about the world of retail and commerce and how things are changing in the world. All right.
Like, seriously. Where the hell is everybody? I'm actually on
I
time
know.
tonight. I'm ready to go. I didn't want to be late for our young man in Singapore. I was trying to be so conscientious.
I mean, to be fair, you're probably on time because you got dinner ready, right? And you can't.
No, I didn't make dinner tonight. I just texted her and told her, oh, fuck, the day went sideways. We're leftovers again tonight. I felt like shit. I don't like when I don't cook, when I don't have dinner ready for her. It bugs me.
Fair enough.
Right? Because I'm home.
like that
I figured I should be able to cook. I'm home, right?
Yeah.
Well, you could same thing, Phil. I'm home, right?
Yep.
So I figure we should be able to have a nice dinner for her, ready to go. But
Yeah.
not tonight.
Richard, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's good to meet you as well. I've heard lots about this podcast that wasn't meant to be, but turned into something that keeps on rolling. So
Yeah.
Just doesn't stop. It's
Yeah,
like that
just
little
keeps
train
going.
that could.
It just keeps going. We're this is episode 141.
there you go.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see you've got the soundproofing up behind you. So
I do. Yeah.
These
Yeah,
are
this
rock
is this is the music room. So there's actually I got the webcam.
so it's up for more than just the podcasting.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so there's a piano there,
Okay.
speakers at the back. There's the soundboard there. There's the
Nice.
violin that I can't play, and then the guitars and ukes are all over the place right now. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so that's kind of, and we've got, I don't know if you can see it, but there's more mics than we almost know what to do with.
That's the
We're a
first time
family
I've
of
seen your
five.
space.
We're a family of five, so when all five of us decide to get into it, it gets tight in here. My son's a piano player. I'm a piano player, so we'll play piano, and or I'll have the guitar going. My wife and one of my daughters is a guitar player. The other one's the singer. The other one's a ukulele player. So so we're kind of like, jam nights are pretty fun here.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've seen your space.
Really?
Yeah, I just look
I've
at the
never
black
shown you?
screen.
Okay. Yeah. I got all the lights now, right? Because my daughter's recording stuff for music and stuff. So I brought in all the lights and everything. So anyway, we got all sorts of shit in the house. That lots of accessories.
What do you got going, Richard?
Yeah.
What's that?
What do you got going? You got a bureau behind you, a kitchen table.
I got a bureau. I got some shoe boxes up there. It's really exciting, let me tell you.
How big a space is Singapore like Hong Kong? Is it tight? Or
Yeah,
do you have room?
We've got time. I'll give you the quick tour. So we live in like what I guess in North America you'd call a studio.
Studio.
Right?
Okay.
Like we're at the door now. So this is Francesca's like office. So
Okay.
she comes and works there. And I gotta show you this. This is like I put these up on the weekend. I got them made in London. So there's this artist. I don't know if you can tell, but they do maps where
That's kind of cool.
the water is inlaid gold.
Yeah,
Gold.
that's
It's
awesome.
gold foil.
Wow.
But anyway, this is Singapore. That's London. And that one's really cool because it's just the Thames with its
Right.
iconic shape
You
that's
see that.
gold. And
Yeah.
then
Right.
we've got Vancouver up there.
Oh, you got
Nice.
Vancouver. Attaboy.
So I got
Nice.
those done up this weekend, which is nice. Sorry. So you come into the kitchen. I don't know what you can see.
It's a nice space, though.
So you got the
Yeah.
kitchen. We don't have a dinner table, but the bar has like
Yeah.
four stools. And then when you come in here, you've got like the living room.
Yeah.
And then actually our bed is a loft, like a pseudo loft.
Oh shit, that's
Okay.
cool too.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
what it does is this is only like 595 square feet. but the way it's laid out, and then you've got like, this is the living room, and you've got like the bathroom, and then a lot of storage in there.
Yeah.
So
it's well laid out.
Yeah,
but
that's really cool.
The way it's laid out, it's small, like it's 600 square feet, but it's the fact they've used a lot of glass has made it feel larger.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
And the fact that the bedroom's elevated kind of doubles up on that space.
Right.
It's nice.
Yeah. Kind of breaks it up a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
So,
and then we have a small balcony as well. So actually the living space is probably less than 600, but anyway, it's good. It's like a lot of Asia. The apartments are small, but it works really well for us. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, more than
awesome.
That. So it's only 2 of you.
Yeah,
lots of room. They have families and spaces that big in Asia. Even 7, 8 people. So whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it's only North America that runs in homes that could sleep 80, and there's 3 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? I mean, the crazy thing is, I remember when I moved to London, one of the things that I never really considered was most of the world, when they have to build up. North America's got this luxury that when you want to build, you can build out. That's
out,
why you've got,
up, sideways, whatever you want. There's nothing but room.
You've got like 1,000-person car parks that just sprawl for days, right? Instead of stacked up parking and things like that. So it's given me a real different appreciation for space having left Vancouver, because you don't realize how much space you have in Canada until you go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
Yeah.
So you're originally from Vancouver?
No, I was born in Dubai. My parents were expats out there. I moved to Vancouver when I was 9. Lived in Vancouver for most of the rest of the time. Moved to London about 7 years ago. Did 6 years in London, and now I'm almost a year in Singapore. It's
crazy,
weird. It doesn't feel like that, because everything after January just kind of feels like nothing. Like I was talking to someone today, and I feel like in 2020 I haven't really done anything. We got the virus the 20th of January, and so our restrictions started to roll in from then, and it's been Groundhog Day for 8 months.
Yeah.
Crazy. I'd be a year in October, which is cool. Yeah.
Wow.
Shit, it's been that long already, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought I had coffee with you just like last week.
Yeah. Man, I'm telling you, Phil, these like 6 weeks, they go by really quickly. Because when I set up the recurring invite, I was like, do I want every 4 weeks or 6? Let's put it 6. And it just goes
bam,
like that.
Just like that.
I feel bad. I think he just, to keep the old man kind of happy, talks. Nice young man. He talks to me once in a while. Makes me feel important.
The elders of our society are important.
It's nice. So I take it and run. I kind of like it. Nice young man. He talks to me periodically.
I love it. I love it.
I'm getting ready for him. 85. Nobody wants to talk to me. I'll be running around.
Oh my God.
Phony Richard, talk to me now, Richard.
Okay, Kenny.
An old man sitting in your coffee shop, just like yelling at the clouds.
I could see Kenny sitting there yelling at people walking down Commercial Drive.
Oh, yeah, I would do it. Hey, pick that up.
Don't park there.
Oh, yeah, I'd be all over it. I could definitely do. That's why they don't want me in the bar. I'd be that guy. I'd be that guy.
All right, Kenny.
The world needs.
Do you want to introduce Richard?
Yeah, I can introduce Richard.
Yeah.
So just so you know, the reason Richard's on the show is because I really like Richard. Amelia loves Richard. Everybody who meets Richard loves Richard. So Richard's just one of those guys I just thought would be really cool to have on the show. Awesome. How I met Richard is we met through, in essence, through London drugs. He was, and this is why I think it'll be a very interesting topic. So he was a young man, entrepreneurial, but running I call it a foundation. I guess it was 5 for Food. And he'll explain it better than I will anyway. But they were running across the country, playing hockey in major cities, raising money for food banks. So an entrepreneur that had a very cool other side, because my generation, entrepreneurs meant you just made shitloads of money. Everybody wanted money, money, and you never shared the money. His generation, which I find fascinating, is much more inclined to do a much nicer thing with the money they raise, etc. So that's how Richard and I got to know each other. I just really liked him. He was just a nice young man. I thought he was cool, like a shitload of energy, doing neat things. And we pretty much, we did that for a couple of years with LD. And then we just sort of stayed in touch. We just sort of stayed in touch over the years. Usually because he phones, make sure I'm okay, I guess. It's that old man checking up shit. I don't know, Phil. I don't know what it is. But that's been the story for Richard and I. So what I find, he's traveled, so I'm always interested to see what he's doing in a new country. Like he's got the Singapore thing going on. I thought it's such a, I don't know, just
it's
probably
cool.
things I wish I had done when I was younger, if I could have, right?
Yeah. It's awesome.
Anyway,
Welcome
you're going to explain
the
your
show.
own world once you get going, but that's pretty much why Richard's on the show.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Richard, welcome to the show.
No, thanks for having me on.
So do you want to pick it up from there? Maybe tell us a little bit about what you're doing, what you're about.
Yeah, definitely. Kenny talked about 5-0 for food, and it came at a time, I was coming out of university, and so I had time, right? I was
it's like 2010, right?
Yeah, it was off the back of the Vancouver Olympics, so everyone was pretty high on sport, particularly high on hockey. And the idea at the time, it started as a summer project. It was like, oh, I've got time. My buddy wants me to drive them across the country, and I got to bring their car back. I was a hockey writer at the time for the Canucks, so I was like, I had all these hockey contacts, and I said, let's meet up, play some hockey. I want to put faces to names. I suppose, as with all things in life, it kind of took on a life of its own. The first year gained so much momentum, and people said this was cool. And I think there was something about it. It was really authentic at the time. Like, it wasn't, my buddy Vic and I think we both put in $1,500, and that was what it cost us to drive across the country, stay in, hotels, eat food, and have these hockey games. And so it was, it kind of, I don't know, it just resonated with people. It was something to do that was different. It's tapping into passion. There's all sorts of things. We say it was the summertime and, it was the hockey's off season, but I think there's something genuinely about the fact that it was hockey. It was real people. It wasn't contrived. Mm-hmm. And we turned it into an annual tour. We raised almost 2 million pounds of food for food banks across Canada, from St. Charles, Newfoundland to Vancouver. And it's amazing the kind of impact that had on me as much as it had on everyone else. Obviously we're helping food banks and people got to be part of this at like a local and a national level. But, I look at that, and that really, I don't know, it set the scene for everything that's kind of happened since. So, I went over to the UK, started to move around in this world, which is called sport for development. So I had no idea that around the world, people use sport to address social issues. So there'll be football programs which are delivering health messaging. There'll be, rugby programs tackling gender inequality, or netball programs that are supporting kind of the delivery of educational values. So there's this whole world where sport is actually the tool to improve society. So I started rolling around in that world, and then about a year ago had an opportunity to come out to Singapore, and now I'm hunkered down on this very small island as we wait out the pandemic.
Your timing wasn't the greatest, but hey.
No, what do you do?
So Phil, just to get a picture, they played shinny across the country, literally.
Yeah. I got the picture. That's super cool.
Street hockey, man. That was it. Like,
it
was awesome.
In Toronto, it was great. We shut down Yonge Dundas Square. Maple Leafs sent people out. Bob McKenzie's coming and dropping the puck.
Yeah.
You had a DJ, and it's just this hockey festival.
Yeah.
But I think what was so interesting was, it was at a time when the internet was it was still the wild, wild west. So, 2010, I think Google must have just bought YouTube. I forget my timelines on that, but
pretty close. Yeah.
But Twitter had Twitter was just getting started. So back in that day, I could tweet the CEO of a company, and the CEO would be tweeting me back, not his assistant or someone curating his feed.
Yeah.
And, I think it got started because I remember that was the time when we used to have tweet ups, right? So the idea that all these people you talk with online, you get together in person. Like, how crazy is that? Now people will be like, whoa, stranger danger, let's not do that, which is ridiculous, because there was this real bridge between online and offline. But I have to say, there was a set of really unique circumstances that allowed that to happen when it happened. If you asked me to do that today with the same kind of resource and like level of network that I had then, wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
Genuinely wouldn't be possible. The way that communities evolve and move, it's changed online, and with this cancel culture and this takedown culture, it wouldn't fly. So it was really that. It was. Now that I look back on it, right place, right time, for sure.
It's amazing. Wow, that's really amazing. The fact that you can go cross country and then play hockey,
shut down main streets, shut down Granville Street,
no, that's just that's all bonus, right? Like
it's awesome.
I can travel the country, I can play hockey with cool people.
Yeah,
it's already like it's just fantastic, right? And then I can
do it?
Shut down streets and like
4 years, 5 years.
Yeah, we did it for 2010 to 2016. Yeah.
Oh, so that's 6 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. Wow. And then, so what took you from there? Because you went to Singapore after that?
No, so I went over to the UK. So it was interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah, UK.
We done this thing for 5 years in Canada. And I was getting to this point where, our team was 40 volunteers. We brought in sponsorship, which covered the cost of this tour, which started to really increase when you're shutting down Young Dundas Square and Granville Street, and you got to rent, fencing and all this stuff. So none of us ever drew anything from it. Everyone had full-time jobs. I was freelancing. And I reached this point where I could see a shift. Like, sponsors were starting to get tired, right? Like, many of our sponsors have been with us for 5 years. You come up with creative ways to improve like the partnership, but at the end of the day, it's still a ball hockey tour across the country. For anyone that knows Play On, the big CBC sponsored tournament, I mean, they went 15 years because I think they had the backing of the CBC and they had a much more reach, but even they shut it down because it's the same thing every year. It had a bit of a shelf life.
Yeah.
So I stepped back and said, look, I've got to do something. And rightly or wrongly at the time, I think it was wrongly, I thought, the way to get this, to a point where it's more sustainable and take it long-term was to go international, right? I was like, if I can make this global, I could attract bigger brands or bigger budgets because we were just operating in Canada. So I actually got some funding from the British government to create a sister organization. So we did the exact same thing, but through football, soccer. And we went over to the UK and we ran a tour, 10 cities, 10 days. I then did a pilot event in Spain, in Barcelona, one in Paris. And then I flew over to Brazil during the 2014 World Cup and we did a couple events there. And I just thought if I could get exposure, build a bit of, global noise, we could attract some larger scale funding to take this to the next level. Because that was the issue, right? Like, I couldn't fund one or two staff, or I couldn't fund one or two staff at the level we needed to, which was full time.
Right.
And so I took that leap. I went over to the UK. We ran a tour, and again, like I would have been in my early 20s at the time, and looking back now. It's a bit of I feel this feels very Todd Bertuzzi, it is what it is, but you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know to really dive into like the context of the UK. So for example, food banks were in an all-out war with then Prime Minister David Cameron. Really ugly in the media. On top of that, food banks, their oldest food bank was 12 years old. The average food bank was less than 2 years old. Compare that to Canada at the time.
I didn't realize that.
Food bank in Canada was 40 years old.
Right?
Yeah.
So the community didn't get food bank. That whole social welfare system is different in Europe.
Yeah.
So I didn't even consider. I just thought they love football. Like let's just swap out for hockey for football and let's go nuts. And it had a decent reception, but man, no one tells you that a 75 million person country is different from a 35 million person country. And no one, I didn't even consider the nuance between, Wales, Scotland, England, and Northern Ireland, right? It's just like the complexity is so different. And, I really value having gone over there with the like ignorance that I did, because I think if I knew everything I knew, I wouldn't have done it. It would have just been too large a mountain to climb. So I think there's some like value in just being a bit ignorant, right? And I learned a lot, but we did that for a year, and that's when I was like, this isn't gonna work, right? Like we had awesome like London Drugs every year kept stepping up. Nature's Path stepped up. Like we had some great partners, but we like our other partners started to say, you know what? We had two partners go through internal restructures. They pulled funding, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to try and drag this for another couple of years and then have to decline.
Yeah.
I'd rather go out on a high. And I also just said, look, I've got to go out and learn. I can come back and build something new, something cool another time, but I got to go surround myself. I got to go be the dumbest person in the room and try and really soak up from other people. And at that point too, I was really interested in how I've always been like a real student of people and culture. And when you come to London in particular, there was weeks where I would talk to people about working on a project in Qatar, South Africa, and Hong Kong, right? Like, where else in the world are you at this global intersection of flows?
Yeah.
And so for me, what was really interesting is you're just, it's like London's like learning on steroids. You're just absorbing cultures, people, geopolitics, like everything, and then you can start to really get a good worldview. So for me, that was really important, and then that was when I decided, you know what, 5-hole for food, footy for food, this overarching brand, sport for food. We were going to launch a basketball concept called Hoops for Food, and we were looking at Asia for that because there's some strong markets. But at the end of the day, it was like, look, the model itself, it's awesome. And like I said, it really worked at that point in time. But 2016, the internet was starting to change. What we'd used to build the movement wasn't at our disposal anymore. It was a natural time to move on. And that's when I started to look at how I could move into this bigger world of sport for development. And how do you invest in sport to create change?
Right.
So
it's one of those. It's a tough thing to scale. Unless you start getting some massive sponsorship or some real big guns coming on. And then it might even lose the flavor of it too, though. I mean, I think the beauty of it at the beginning was it was fun. It was different. And it was small, and yet big people were kind of wanting to play with you. It was just, I don't know, it's just kind of cool.
But what's crazy about it is, again, I see a lot of stuff that I only see now that we're like 2020, we're 10 years from when it started. Right. So it started 10 years ago this June, really. And I look at it now, and effectively we were delivering what people package up as experiential marketing. But we were delivering it way before it had a name and it was a thing that everyone wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so you're right. Like, in terms of scaling, like, I think one of the things that's really interesting when you found an organization is having the wherewithal to sometimes be able to step out of yourself and be your own critical advisor. Like, I'll be honest, like, we did a cool thing, but we were a middle person between you and the food bank, right? And we reached a really interesting point where I said to the food banks, like, look, if you guys invest in this, why don't you guys all, like, there's 13, 15 food banks. If you guys all chipped in like 10 grand, what is that? That's $150,000. You could sustain this for several like for years. Yeah. Right? And that costs you nothing, but what you're getting in return is huge. Like, we had big media, we had everything going for us. And interestingly, the food bank said, no, like, we're not interested in keeping this going, even though, they were happy to receive, 10,000 pounds of food from London Drugs and another 10,000 pounds from Nature's Path, but they're not willing to like put in a bit of money. Like, it made no sense to me.
Weird. So weird.
Their models aren't set up for that, though. They're not businesses that they don't invest that way. It's different, right? It's deliver to me as opposed to work with me type of things. I think maybe with these people or these organizations.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you definitely don't. it's a skill set too, right? Like you know, like food banks, I know the ones locally they're pretty operationally focused, right? That's what they're worried about. So something like this is definitely out of their wheelhouse. They gotta
Within the scope
go
of
back and rethink about like who would do this, who would have the vision to kind of carry it forward, right? So
I mean, you know what's really interesting is, for me, I think the thing I've been most proud of is that even today, like I think 3-4 months ago, I got a message from someone who had clearly kind of forgotten about 5 Hole for Food, but then remembered it and said, "Hey, what are your guys' dates this summer?" So someone that had clearly not really
That's funny, eh?
checked in to see, oh, this hasn't been going for 5 years. But that tells me something too, right? Like that's a
Connected with
real
people.
deep connection with people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Every now and again, someone says, "Hey, when are you coming?" And then the other thing is, there was one food bank, the food bank in Victoria. They decided to take it on themselves. They, instead of 5 Hole for Food, they just named it Hockey for Food. And they still, to this day, have an annual ball hockey tournament, same place we used to have it, fundraiser for the food bank.
that's cool.
And this was always designed to be owned by the community. Like we weren't necessary. We gave it, a bit of glamour because when someone drives across the country, CTV want to pick it up and talk about it, right? This was always about the local community. And I think for me, my measure of success is that somebody kept this going, And, they send me a message once a year to tell me how it went. And I don't know, that to me, I think
that's really cool.
Value. That's cool. Yeah,
that's something to be proud about.
Yeah. So what's going on now? What are you doing in Singapore?
I'm waiting. No, so I moved out here. My wife got a job, and so we figured, so let's go check out Asia. I think London was awesome, but after the vote in 2016, the Brexit vote, there was a palpable change in the mood. And in hindsight, it's a bit lucky to have made this decision, but we kind of said, look, we need to make plans to get out. We don't like the direction this is heading. And if you look at it now, I definitely don't like where they sit. But I think, I've done a lot of work across sub-Saharan Africa, a lot of work in Europe, coming from North America as well. And I just, I'm lucky. What she does can be done anywhere in the world. She's a gynecologist. So I feel really fortunate that I can say, let's go where I want to go, because she doesn't have a problem finding a job. And so Asia, I think, was the next frontier, in as much as I just hadn't, had a lot of exposure to working in this part of the world. And, funnily enough, Europe is a big hub for Africa. Obviously, Canada and the States, a big hub for Latin America. But Asia isn't, you deal with a bit of, what would it be, West Asia, if you will, out of Europe, but generally everything's hubbed out here. So I just felt like I wanted to be based here and to figure out how this part of the world works. I mean, it's just so radically different from some of the cultural nuances to the way that the market forces operate. I mean, in Asia, you've got 3 of the 4 largest populations: India, China, Indonesia. Like, that's profound. Right. And the other thing that's fascinating for me about Singapore is you got a country, it's only 5 million people. And yet, on top of sometimes being a petri dish for Asia, where a lot of products and, consumer products are tested, it ends up being kind of the engine room for delivery across particularly across Southeast Asia. And so you just got such an interesting dynamic here. And another place to learn, I think to really check it out. So
that's cool.
That's what I'm doing. I recently joined this firm that is investing. But what they do is they align investors across Asia. So anyone that wants to put money into change projects, whether it's sustainable seaweed farms or whether it's tackling gender issues, they align something like $9 billion worth of capital every year, and they identify the strongest programs to invest that money in. So I recently joined them as their director of communications and marketing, and really looking at how you storytell that work in order to just increase engagement, from other investors, but also educating the community about what's happening. And I think that's the other thing. There's some fascinating stuff happening in this region. I gave a lecture a couple days ago to this cohort of social change organizations, and you've got everything from sustainable fish farming to people looking at seaweed as an alternative for some basic
Everything.
Stripping everything. Sustainable fashion lines. There's such an energy in this part of the world, and it's really, I'm excited to kind of tap into that. So we'll see where it goes.
You sound more juiced this time than last time I talked to you, which is great. It might be something.
But I talk to you all the time. I'm getting bored of it, Kenny. At least I got Phil here. I got something to excite me, wake me up in the morning. No, it's truthfully, it's my very junior geopolitical take is that we all know what's happening in North America, and Europe is slowly on fire. But and despite the tensions that fall over in Asia because of U.S. and China, there's just so much growth out here. Like Vietnam is on the rise. Bangladesh commercially is on the rise.
That whole area is on the rise.
Indonesia, Malaysia, like there's so much going on.
Right.
I read today. I thought that this was crazy. Singapore is going to be home to the tallest prefabricated building in the world. It's going to be 56 stories tall. Just think about it. They're building a 56-story
prefab,
like Lego building, basically. Wow. There's certain things happening here as innovative solutions to the local challenges that you don't see elsewhere, and I think that's just honestly that keeps me interested. It keeps me stimulated. So it's cool.
It's not you, Phil. Just so you know, it's other things. Just so we're very clear on that, I'm just going to correct everybody. It's not all to do with Phil. It's all about Richard's finally getting excited again. Did you say something? Finally getting excited again.
What?
That's good. You sound stoked again. Like you sound like you've got some life. Like you've got some spunk back in you. Just good to hear.
No, it's good.
I always loved about Asia. I got to spend a couple of years when I was with J&J, and I did a global franchise job for them. So I got to kind of travel the world helping different J&J country business units. Spent some time with Singapore and Hong Kong, and just like how quickly, because of the economies of scale, like how big the markets are, being able to test out, the storytelling bits that you're going to be doing. It's so much more definitive than the North American market or even the European market, because there's so many people that the results you get back, you get them back, fairly quickly. And that was pre-digital, right? And even then you would get results back very quickly, and you'd know how good of a storyteller you were or how bad you were. And so that actually really excites me, right? That you're in this market where, the storytelling you want to do, you can now test that digitally and then like turn that on, turn that off, and kind of go, woo, they hated that. I know overnight, put that one away, because it's kind of neat.
But what fascinates me too is the market just has such different interests and needs. I think you can take a product from North America to Europe or from Europe to North America, and the cultural forces or that drive consumerism are pretty much the same. For me, I see it most personally in the snack category, right? Like in Asia, in Vancouver, if I go look at a shelf, I've got like 2, maybe 3 types of Kit Kats. I got like the four break Kit Kat. I got the Kit Kat Chunky, and I maybe got like another Kit Kat Chunky flavor, or like the double Kit Kat Chunky. Yeah. Over here, you've got like 12 flavors of Kit Kats on the shelf, right? Yeah. And that's just Kit Kat, right? And when you look at the drinks as well, it's like, even though you think the space is saturated, there's so much room for that new, quirky looking, different drink that the market is still able to absorb. Like, it's things like that I find so interesting, because what's different, like, between this group of 2 billion people and the 2 billion people between another region of the world, and yet culture is so different.
It's so different though.
So much to learn.
So they're so different. Yeah.
Especially now though, like when you've got these diaspora, right? Like you've got these large groups of immigrant communities in countries outside of their region, right? And you're trying to figure out how do you market to these people. I think understanding, some of the markets they originate from hold some of the secrets to that, if that makes sense. So for me, it's fascinating. So much to try and unpick.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. That's very cool. It's such a, I had a lot of fun. I love that market. Just so interesting.
So different. There's really no place. Asia is just different, right? Because we do, especially if you're in North America, you get so stuck on here or Europe, right? Because in my generation, there was definitely more Europeans in the city than not. So your whole focus on life is there, where obviously the whole world is coming from the other side. It is all coming from Asia. You got so much cool shit happening. Young people have things. They want to try things. Like it's just different over there.
Well, I'm
much
curious.
different than here.
I'm curious, like what's the most innovative thing you guys have seen in retail or commerce or restaurants in the last 6 months or last year? What's the most innovative change you've seen come into force?
There's some new, so if I break it up, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is restaurants that have, because of COVID, they've taken their restaurants and really turned themselves into, I don't know if there's a category. They're almost like small markets, but customized markets, right? So, I've seen Italian restaurants that have taken their pastas and their marinated meats and turned them into things that people can make at home, where they were a full sit-down service kind of restaurant. They've turned that upside down, turned it into, buy a prep meal that you can cook at home so you can stay away from other people. And then we'll also act as your wholesale market, right? Now, so you get to tap into our suppliers and pull groceries that way. So I think those are kind of neat changes that have been different.
They've definitely been forced. They've definitely been forced. Most of this has been forced by a situation that just wasn't, nobody was ready for. So the traditional sit down, eat in a restaurant thing obviously died pretty fast. So if they didn't morph and try to do different things, like we had lots of suppliers. You could, if you wanted to buy milk, you could buy milk. You could go to Earl's and buy milk. Why? Because Cisco sold Earl's milk. Earl's doesn't need Cisco to go down. Cisco still needs business. But it was kind of cool that people were saying, okay, what do we do? What do we do? Takeout. Never seen so much takeout in our country that we've seen in the last 6 months. Why? Again, fueled by things. But in terms of true innovation, like anything,
it's not a ton.
I don't think anything comes from here anymore. If you want to see the cool shit, you got to get onto sort of all the Asian type of spots and see what they're doing. But the technology, how you use a phone over there, we're finally using the phone here. I think the way we purchase, et cetera, the way they were doing 4 or 5 years ago over there. Like you could buy a house on WeChat practically.
I mean, you think about even, I think it was, when I was there, so like 10 years ago, the Koreans were already starting to do display shopping, right? So you could
shopping in the subway, hitting buttons in the subway, home.
You could see the stuff, and then you'd pick it up at your subway stop, right? Like on your way home. That stuff was like 10 years ago, and we're still not there yet, right? So,
we're just getting into order at home, go pick up at a store.
Yeah.
But
did you
that's
do
sort of
that?
what they did. No, I haven't done it yet. But I did order from Costco online. I ordered from Costco.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Delivered to the house.
Cool.
Daniel and I were fascinated. I know it's pretty sad to say, but we were so stoked. Didn't have to get off our asses. It was awesome.
But no, it's interesting. Like out here, even before COVID, there are restaurants that have gone almost fully digital. So there's a local sushi place here we love. It's called Banky Sushi. And they have two, if you want to call them gimmicks, two things that make them different. One, there's staff in the kitchen, and there's 2 people out front. One person to take you to your seat and one person to take the bill. Because everything after that is done by QR code. So you pull up a menu, and your phone becomes the menu. So you scan this QR code, your phone's the menu. You punch everything in, go straight to the kitchen. And then the delivery system is the second thing. So no one even brings you your food. They've set up these really kind of cute bullet trains, And so the seating is along this bullet train line. So we're used to
that's
the train goes
awesome.
in a circle.
It's awesome.
But they've got a bullet train that just brings your thing, you take it off, and the train goes back to the kitchen. And they just keep putting stuff on, punching the table, and it goes to the right table. So the whole dining experience is different because you never actually interact with a staff member other than go to your seat and to pay the bill, right? And obviously, in light of COVID, like over here, the big thing they've taken advantage of is QR codes, and that was one of the eye openers for me coming to Asia. QR codes are way more prominent than they were in Europe and in North America, but here, that seems to be how they communicate so much information. And
they're coming back now.
I'll say, you know what? They're coming back. They're coming back. All the menus
they started like 10 years ago, and everyone's like,
do you remember? I must have had 6 QR code readers at one time on my phone.
Yeah, because it
just
so
died.
Like,
nobody was doing anything. All of a sudden, COVID especially.
Yeah.
If you go to White Spot, Rich, like in town, QR code for the menu. Like it's all like that's how it's all going. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, what a blast from the past. The hottest thing in the world 10 years ago died over here.
Yeah.
Never died over there. Because I remember when I was going to Hong Kong and stuff, like you could do everything on your phone. Like you just walk around scanning things. I mean, you're buying things. You didn't even know you're buying. There's a scan away. It was awesome. And here,
my money.
Exactly. But here is so different. Like we are not. I mean, I know people think technologically that North America is the place.
No.
You want to see the cool shit, man? Go to Asia. They're just
you gotta go.
It's just different. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's.
I mean,
growing, still developing, still for lack of a
you know what it is. Like I can speak for Singapore a little bit. You know the saying necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah.
Singapore in some ways really embodies that, right? You have 5 million people on an island that's about 700 square kilometers. It's not large at all.
It's small.
But the interesting thing is, from a planning perspective, every decision they take is with a view to how will this still be around 100 years from now. So we don't, like, for example, Singapore has a water problem. So we actually import all of our water, or most of our water, from Malaysia. The hilarious thing, we then treat it and send it back to Malaysia for them to use cleaner than it came to us. But the interesting thing is, despite all the rain and everything that's going on, Singapore's source of water is technically a threat. It's a risk, right? And so, they've been exploring water recapture systems and things like that. How do you secure your water supply?
Really desalinating water, all that kind of stuff.
Things Canadians don't have to worry about.
There's very little. There's very little agricultural land. So they're starting to look at vertical farms. Again, how do you secure your own?
Right.
So it's things like this. It's there's so much daylight and sunlight here. And so now they're looking at how solar can actually offset electrical needs. And, they built an island, a small reclaimed piece of land off the coast, which is helping them dispose of all the garbage, right? If you've only got this much land, where do you send your garbage? So there's videos that go around that show you this, and essentially they burn it. They
incinerate, though, right?
90% of the garbage, but there's some filters that clean the air before it's released. So there's been some really creative solutions to problems we all have. Canada has a problem with garbage. UK everyone has a problem with garbage, but here they've had to come up with a solution. And in that sense, it's been, really. I feel like that's what drives it in this part of the world a little bit more than elsewhere.
I think it's what drives it completely in that side of the world, because everything is smaller and you got a lot of people in a small space. What do we care about garbage here? Really, Richard, put it down in normal terms. So you just build another landfill. It's not like we don't have the space. Yeah, do you worry about water? We got more water than we got the most fresh water on the planet in this country. Everything's at risk. I understand that. But really and truly, when you live in the land of fat, you don't have to be lean. You just keep eating. It doesn't.
There's a sense of scale too, though. I think, when you've got 30 million people spread over the size of a country that we have,
we're a big place.
Lots of getting. I mean, look at air travel, for example, right? Like to get from me to get to you, Kenny, is easily $500, $600, right? For Richard, for you to get from where you are to Hong Kong, name your exotic island here, right? Is probably the same as the cost of a taxi ride to the airport. You know what I mean? Like you can get to a really nice Filipino, beach for about $55 on an airline, right? Because you've also got economies of scale. There's so many people.
Europe benefits from that too, right? We have a lot of space and we have a lot of resources, and you don't worry. But why innovate when you don't have to? That's what happens.
But I think the technology, like whether it comes to flavors to technology and everything, there's scale there that you just don't have here, right? Like,
for sure.
Like here, 30 million people, you've got to get everybody on board, or you're still not going to make your pipeline number. You're not going to make growth, right? There, if you're a really shitty retailer and you've got, but you got the right location on a main street, you're getting business. Like there's just, there's like, you got to be really shitty to go out of business there, right? Like, not that it's worse. I just think, one, there's great ways to test ideas, and then two, to be able to push innovation forward. There's just so many more people that you can tap into for scale, right? So I think that, on top of the necessity for invention, those two things are like, it just makes it a great place for growth, right? Like it's so interesting. I think we're starting to turn that scale too. Like I think you're going to start to see the economy is already swinging back, to Asia, and I think in the next, kind of 20 years, that's what we're looking at, right? Is we'll all be in North America, we'll all be working on home and probably working vampire hours because we'll be working for folks on the Asian side, right? So.
Asia will offshore to North America instead of
I think so.
Well, that's what you say. Like, so when you look at it from our perspective, the States has got some scale, and yet you still wouldn't say there's massive innovation that necessarily comes out of America at any given time. No. California's got the same problems that Singapore has, a lot more land, but it's got a shitload of people, and they still can't figure stuff out.
Yeah.
So if you look at innovation on our side, we are too fat. It doesn't matter. Like you've got space, you've got money, you've got resources.
It doesn't matter that much.
It's not as big a deal, right? Where in these other places where it's different. Like, so honestly, Rich, I think whenever I'm online, you want to see the cool stuff. You got to head west for Vancouver. Like you do. You got to go to Asia and see the cool stuff.
I want to pick your brain for a second. I'm thinking about some of the brands and retailers. I know that I get these questions a lot, and this is not a comprehensive answer. I'm curious. So when people come overseas to start sourcing for materials and things like that, right? Because almost every brand does it, right? They start maybe locally and then they start to go overseas. Do you have any tips for things that people should be doing to think about how you go about cracking culture, things like that? I get a lot of horror stories. I give them a handful of tips, but I get a lot of horror stories about people that go, oh, I went over there to get sunglasses made, and I got one really great pair, and then when they shipped me the box, they were all like full of crap and full of like, are there any things that you would recommend people kind of do to help decode some of the different cultures that you've run into?
Yeah. The first thing I tell them to do is buy the book, The Culture Map. I read it for interest's sake, but the author, Erin Meyer, she researches this, but she's written a book that actually plots 20, 30, maybe 40 different cultures on 10 different spectrums, from how they give feedback to how they communicate as teams to how they listen, etc. And I just found it a fascinating way to understand how different we actually are. And I think it'd be really helpful for anybody that wants a crash course in doing any sort of business in a different culture. It's well worth the read. It's quick, it's light, and it's very easy to digest. The other thing, I think the biggest mistake I see people making is let me figure out how to describe this. I have an American friend who has a team of 3 or 4 Singaporeans, and she was talking to me about how when it comes to accomplishing tasks, you know, the American, like both sides of the equation are very task driven, but you know, the Americans have no problem with, or let's just generalize, Westerners have no problem kind of saying, you did this wrong, go fix it, right? And that directness in Asian culture can be quite insulting, right?
Yeah.
There's a way to deliver feedback or to communicate negative information or unhappiness or displeasure or whatever. And I think if you can crack that, that will be one of the biggest keys to your success in Asia. It's understanding how the person wants to be spoken to, and what are the nuances to relationships in this part of the world. You know, what are the little things you do? Like when you give, if you're working in Japan and you're handing, you know, business cards are huge in Japan. So make sure you have them. Like it's almost an affront not to give someone your business card, right? But then it's little things like knowing how to do it, right? You know, 2 hands, pass it forward, like the little details that make a really big difference. Or, you know, out here, what's really interesting is as a sign of respect, you often give stuff with the left hand, you know, and it's you know, like that. And I just think these little details go a long way to creating a sense of trust between you and your foreign counterpart. So I'd really stress people to understand some of that, and Culture Map delivers a lot of that really well.
That's cool.
So take a read at that.
That's a good tip.
Usually what I tell people is to get to know people there that can help you. Because if you don't understand the way they do business, wherever you are, it's really tough to do.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very difficult to do in Asia if you don't, because language is not Latin based, so it's a whole different world of language. Nuances are huge. How you say things, what you say, when you say, why you say, and you're always best to have someone there who knows a lot of the tricks. And honestly, most people are pretty forgiving if they know you're trying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People will go with you.
You know what? You know the best way to sum it up. It's knowing when to take a 30-minute working lunch and when to take a two-hour, you know, shoot the breeze lunch. Right. Because different cultures will value that time differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you just got to learn to play within the sandbox you're in.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Very interesting.
That's a great tip.
Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I get that a lot. So I always try and ask whenever I get someone who's crossed that barrier, either come from Asia or has landed in Asia, because I think it's an important. I actually can't even tell you how many brands I've run into where I've asked that question. They all have like really terrible stories because they just didn't understand where they were going. They kind of thought, you know, it's like New York. I'll just land and, you know, like it'll be fine. And like,
exactly.
No, it won't be fine.
I'll just talk the way I normally do, and I'll just do what I normally do.
It won't be fine.
Right, you won't have any friends, but sure, light it up.
The other thing that's crazy, I think sometimes we come into those conversations thinking we're a big fish, right? But, you know, your order of 10 million might pale in comparison to that Indonesian order of 100 million.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So
exactly.
On the scale of priority, like we might come in there, a Western brand, we're a big deal. But actually they've got local Asian brands doing way more business.
Exactly.
They want your business, but they don't need your business.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes go in with that entitlement, like you need me more than I need you. And that's where it breaks down completely.
Yeah. Totally.
That's a great tip. Richard, thank you for this. This was amazing. If people want to find you, is that okay if they find you?
Yeah.
Where do they find you?
Richard Loat on LinkedIn or Twitter. There should only be one of me, so it's easy to find. L-O-A-T.
Okay. I'll put if you're listening to this, I'll put the link to the book as well as your LinkedIn profile and your Twitter profile in the show notes as well.
Definitely. And thanks for having me on. This was actually good fun.
Thank you. That was very fun.
Thanks for coming on. And you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Just to talk to me. I let you have Phil for a little bit. No problem.
Listen, if you mistakenly dial my number instead of Kenny's in 6 weeks,
it's okay.
Hey,
it's all good.
Easy. Maybe we'll do another catch up in a little while and make sure he's okay.
Oh.
I don't have to share all the friends. That's awesome, buddy.
Richard. Thank you very much.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Nice big smile. It looks a lot, but it looks good. It looks like you've. I think you just needed something to do.
You know what it is, man. All right. You know what's really interesting is so Francesca goes to the clinic. She comes home, right? Like I wake up, I don't leave the flat. I've got nowhere to go, no one to see because no one really wants to meet up. And so she comes home from work, and I'm like a bloody puppy dog, like give me attention, give me attention, give me attention. She's been dealing with people all day. The last thing she wants to do is deal with me. And recently, I went out for drinks with a couple friends the other day, super casual. We went and sat on a rooftop, and I came back, and she's like, "What's happened to you? Like you're in such a good mood." And I was like, I draw so much energy from people, and like this is fun, and like doing this is giving me some energy, but like Zoom just doesn't do it for me, right? But like when you just I need to be with people. And I think last week I was able to go out 3 or 4 times just with people. On Sunday, it was Singapore Day, and we had a couple friends come over, and we sat on the balcony and had beers while we watched the fireworks. Nothing special. But man, like that
interaction,
right?
Humans, like I've been really, really.
You crave it, man. You crave it.
Because I don't have it, right?
Yeah.
And she's the opposite. She finds that people drain her, so her way of recharge is come home and read a book or do whatever.
Shut down.
Whereas I'm the total opposite, and so this lack of I will go full days not leave. I didn't leave the apartment yesterday.
Yeah,
like I just didn't leave the apartment. I should probably go for a run or something, but eventually just it kind of builds, and you're just like, oh, I'm kind of done. But it's being able to kind of see people and stuff is starting to build me up, but it's the lack of human interaction. We're social creatures, man. You know what it's like.
Some are introverts, some are extrovert. Amelia's very much like Francesca. Amelia can sit at home and recharge.
Clouds,
That's fine. That's how I recharge. Anyway, before it gets too on me, thank you very much.
Well,
thanks, Richard.
I'm gonna go make some kind of dinner right now. I don't know what the hell it's going to be, but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Richard, thanks very much for doing that. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Okay, take care.
Okay, boys.
All right.
Ciao, man.
Bye, guys.
Ciao. Okay, young man. I've got a burn.
Yeah, go dinner.
Done.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds good. Give me a buzz. Okay.
No, we're going to be on the same call tomorrow. You, me, and
it's morning. Shit, I got a morning meeting. Oh my God.
Come on, young man.
Yeah, I'll talk to you
early
tomorrow.
too. Yeah. Ciao.
Sounds good. Ciao, buddy.
All right. That's the end of this Commerce Life. We'll be back soon with the next episode. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Give us feedback. Tell us what you think. Subscribe, like us, join us, share us, tell your friends about us. And we hope to see you next time with more commerce news.